at 48 and Monaco at 45. Exciting league.
Monaco coming from nowhere. I thought they were terrible, but no, they're coming back into the game.
I love a 4-team race to the title. That's sweet. I don't know when's the last time we've seen that in France, really.
No, I can't think of it. It's just been Paris Saint-Germain by late September have won it, right?
I saw you thinking for a second. I saw you thinking for a second that you had the PSG crest all over your brain. Like, it's always been.
I can't see beyond that. The only thing I remember is when Lyon won it 6 years in a row in the early 2000s. For me, that was the last time PSG did. And then although I know that's not the last time PSG didn't win.
And then when Lille won it with Rudy Garcia, I think.
And Montpellier won it with Giroud up front. I remember that as well.
All right. Let's go to Germany. We're crossing another border where last night, I remind you that we're recording on a Thursday. There was the third round of the DFB Pokal. And you would never guess, Rory, what did Schalke do?
Oh, poor Schalke. I feel so bad for them. It's just awful. They lost again, right?
Yeah, they lost again. 1-0 this time. Just a good loss, we could say. 1-0. Their supporters...
Good job, guys. Good job, guys.
Good job. Then Leverkusen also lost to Essen. And Leipzig walked all over Bochum. Guys, my German is terrible. 4-0. And Dortmund won at Paderborn 3-2, thanks to Emre Can, Sancho, and Haaland. Every time we mention Haaland, we got to talk about his numbers, right?
Yeah, go. We want more stats, more Haaland stats.
Get ready, because this one is also funny. 22nd goal in 21 games this season.
Christ. And he's having a quiet season. Dortmund are having a quiet season.
A very quiet season. But, Rory, I think it's time to move to Albion, where we had a lot of... Yeah, retro. A lot of league action, a lot of crazy results, controversial refereeing decisions. Rory, where do you want to start?
We're going to start. I'm going to save my anger about refereeing decisions for a bit later. And we're going to start with Brighton. Plucky Brighton getting their second 1-0 win of the week against one of the top 6 teams. So not only did they do Tottenham 1-0, they have now beaten Liverpool 1-0 at Anfield.
Headlines like these really brighten up my day.
Oh, how long have you had that? Did you have that written down? Yeah.
No, I saw it on a meme this morning, and I was like, I'm going to say it on the pod. I'm going to say it on the pod.
That. So, Brighton, like I said before, they were the unluckiest team in the league in terms of XG, and now it just seems like they're getting their luck, right? Finally, it's coming round. So they're now unbeaten in 4, winning 3 of those, conceding 0 goals and scoring 3. That is efficient. That back door is locked. They're getting that one shot in a game, and it has springboarded them suddenly, and they're looking a lot safer. So they're now on 24 points and 10 points above the relegation zone. So it did look like they were going to get sucked into it, but this little run of form has kind of boosted them. I've said before, they're a team I like to watch. They've got some really, really good players in Tariq Lamptey, Yves Bissouma. Trossard has had a really good season, and they're just a very nice team to play. And the thing about Brighton, I watched the last 20 minutes of the game yesterday once I realised the Villa-West Ham game was done. I watched the last 20 minutes, and it seemed like Brighton went toe-to-toe with Liverpool, really. It wasn't like how Burnley won, which was just it was still a valid win, right? I'm not having to go at Burnley, but it was like a flat back 10 and just wait, right? They would get a penalty, they win the game. Brighton, they were sitting back, but when they got the ball, they played really nice football, really good counter-attacking football, and they were equal with Liverpool on the amount of chances created. So they really, really did give a good account of themselves. Liverpool are suddenly looking bereft of confidence. They have now... So they've not won at home since December the 16th.
And they're not scoring.
And they've not scored in 3 at home for the first time since 1984.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like last night, it seemed like they really missed Mane. And there's... I can't really explain what's going on there. Injuries in the defense, you can kind of say, okay, if you look at it like subjectively, you can say any team would struggle if they lost their 2 best centre-backs, which they've done in Joe Gomez and Van Dijk. They've also lost Joel Matip, right? They are playing midfielders in defence and have been doing for a while. So you can understand how they're not pushing for the title. But the struggles up front are really, really confusing. Maybe it's because like Fabinho can't play in midfield anymore. He's having to drop into defense. Maybe that's kind of making their defense less stable. Maybe they're less able to get those killer balls to the front three. I don't know what's happening, but Klopp looked confused and incredibly angry. You know, that Klopp angry face that he throws where his teeth kind of jut out at the bottom.
Yeah.
He looked really, really, really pissed off.
Look, the thing, do you think, because I've watched only the highlights of the most recent Liverpool games, I haven't had the chance to watch a full game, but do you think that maybe Klopp has worked them too hard 2 seasons ago? So that's kind of what people were rumoring around Inter when Mourinho left and Inter couldn't perform anymore. They were like, this guy has overworked the players for 1 entire year, almost 2 years. So maybe right now they're actually like, their bodies can't take it anymore that much.
I think that could be part of it. I think the schedule this year is making every team struggle, right? That's why we're seeing lower points totals. Like, I think whoever wins the league this year is going to be maybe a record low point. But I think the bigger issue they had was that they didn't freshen up the squad, right? And that's because of COVID. That's because no team is throwing money around. But they could have brought in a few more players. Like, they should have brought in a centre back in the summer. I know hindsight is 2020, but even in the summer, people were saying you need to bring in a centre back. You really need a centre back. You really need a centre back, and they didn't do it. So I feel like this is where the financial situation has really stood out at Anfield and at Liverpool, because they just look a bit. They look like they need a bit of freshness in that squad, I think.
Chris, we're sorry, man. I'm very sorry about this, Chris.
Yeah, well, he was very smug with me for Arsenal Wolves, so I'm not that sorry. I was quite happy sending him smug messages back. So moving on, we're going to go for the next big game, which some might argue should have been where we started, which is Manchester United beating Southampton 9-0.
It's the second year in a row that
second time in 2 seasons.
That's kind of bad, man. I mean, doesn't a good defense usually concede like 18 goals in the first half of the season alone? They conceded 18 in 2 games.
Yeah, it seems like there's you have to look at both cases, right? For a team to win 9-0 once in their history, you would be like, oh, wow, okay, that stands out. But twice in 2 years, you have to think there's a mentality thing or something going on there. Now, obviously, there are mitigating factors, right? They had the youngster, now I need to say this name right because it's a Polish name. They had Jankovic sent off in the 2nd minute, and then there was just a complete collapse in Southampton. We have to give Manchester United credit. Any team that wins 9-0, obviously they were playing very well, right? They were playing great football. Some really nice goals in there. Wan-Bissaka opening up the scoring. McTominay getting one. Daniel James. Fernandes got his obligatory penalty. Like, there was some nice goals in there. But weirdly, the main moment that people were talking about afterwards was the second red card. So Bednarek was sent off in the 87th minute, and it was a dive from Martial for the penalty. It was a massive dive. And people have been talking about that ever since, really, about the inconsistency in referees, in VAR, and people don't know what the line actually is for a foul or how much contact is needed. This is going to tie into the Arsenal-Wolves game as well. But before I go on about the VAR too much, I'd say, obviously, Manchester United.
I'm going to put a timer on your rant, Rory. On your Arsenal rant, I'm going to put a timer for later.
Yeah. Mate, honestly, you cannot believe how angry I was.
Sorry, I cut you off. What were you going to say about Manchester United?
But Manchester United play great football. And what is happening with Manchester United is that they are beating the teams that they should beat quite handedly, right? They're getting some good results. They're beating the teams that are below them. When they seem to struggle is when they play teams who are traditionally in the Big Six or the teams towards the top of the table. That's where they struggle. And this is maybe what's going to be the difference between them being a title force and not being a title force. You can beat West Brom. You can beat Southampton have had a good season, but you can beat Southampton. But if you're only ever going to get 0-0s against City, 0-0s against Arsenal, 0-0s against Chelsea, whoever, you're not going to get ahead of those other teams because they are beating. Like, if you know what I mean, I think that's going to be the difference, basically.
I agree
But
with you.
9-0 is always an impressive result. And Manchester United, there have been 3 9-0s in Premier League history, and Manchester United have 2 of them. They beat Ipswich 9-0 in 1995. The other one, of course, being Leicester beating Southampton 9-0 last year. Southampton fans, we're now moving on. You can uncover your ears. The funny thing is, they were getting so sick of hearing about the first 9-0 every time they played a game from commentators. And just as it was starting to die down, here comes another one.
Yeah, that's bad, man. It's difficult
pretty
to
bad.
explain a 9-0, really.
Yeah, it made me feel a lot better about the Arsenal result, I'll be honest. But I've seen a lot of Southampton fans online who are really not happy with the board. They're not backing Hasenhüttl. As we've said, no teams are really spending money at the moment, but they're not backing Hasenhüttl. You can see he's getting a bit frustrated. He's having to play a lot of youngsters. And the Saints fans are worried that he might get sick and leave because he's a very good manager and there'll be plenty of clubs lining up for him. I think, okay, you can question what about his teams calls them to lose 9-0 twice, but I think before this game, people were praising how good a job he was doing, right?
Yeah.
So I know potentially you're only as good as your last game, but I think he's obviously a very good manager.
Well, you told the Southampton fans to uncover their ears, and then you just said that their manager is going to run away.
Yeah, no, sorry. I feel like that was a really sly dig, right? That was really sly.
Let's move on. We want to talk about the one and only Messi Lingard.
Yeah, now this was good to see. This was good to see.
And the little dance, the little annoying
of course
dance.
It was a dance. He's had 2 years to plan how he's going to celebrate that goal. Yeah.
Seeing that little dance, I mean, I'm happy for the guy, but that dance is as annoying as I remembered it.
Oh, mate, try having it at your stadium when he honestly, and I realize and I understand how United fans would absolutely love that moment. I would love that moment if it was Aubameyang, but seeing that guy dance at the Emirates was like, oh God, like almost peak banter FC era is Jesse Lingard dancing at the Emirates. But
yeah, I agree with you.
This move to West Ham could be fantastic for him. I think it's great for West Ham and it's great for the player. He's exactly the type of player that West Ham need. He can play in that number 10 role. He's got that creativity. And watching him against Aston Villa from the get-go, he was like really driving at goal, very direct, head up. And there were some moments where he was like dribbling past Grealish. You could see that he was trying to prove a point. That he was like, because obviously he can't not know that he's become a bit of a meme and stuff, if you know what I mean. So I think all that would kind of drive you on. And then the club that you have been at all your life send you out for loan. Like you can see he's got a point to prove. For West Ham, this could be perfect. A short-term player, maybe, who's going to do a job for them for the rest of the season and provide them more spark up front when they haven't really got a striker. They're playing Antonio as their main striker, who isn't really a striker. And since selling in Haller, they don't really have a backup. So I think it's a really, really clever move from Moyes to bring him in. And of course, Moyes has managed him before as well, so it's a player he knows.
Yeah, and what I liked about that game was the animosity between the two teams. I mean, Aston Villa and West Ham, which we were kind of counting out at the beginning of the season, they are fighting for a top 8, top 6 spot, and it was beautiful to see that it was unexpected players, fighting for that high up in the rankings.
Well, this is it, exactly. Last year when they played, they were fighting each other for survival, right? And now they're fighting each other for European qualification. It's crazy. It shows, on one hand, how good a job that Dean Smith and David Moyes are both doing, right? And it also shows how slightly weird this season is, right? So I think it's a fixture that almost sums up this season. But it was a really good game, really entertaining, and West Ham, they look really confident. They look like they're enjoying themselves. Souček scored again because, of course, Souček scored again because he scores every week. Him and Declan Rice together just look unbelievable in midfield. And, yeah, they've got a good spine there with Ogbonna as well. It looks like a good place to be.
Mr. Wayne, Tom Wayne, in case you're listening, a phone call is going to come soon. We are going to come back on the pod to talk about West Ham. And I'm going to take this opportunity to tell our listeners that we're kind of trying to create a network of correspondents around Europe. We have got most of the big teams covered. We're looking for people in France, Germany, Spain, and other minor teams. A Brighton fan would be great to interview after these 2 consecutive results. But do contact us on Twitter, Instagram. You know our handles. We're always there. But now it's time for the big rant